You're listening to Donald Trump at Davos. We will stay with him. Right now, though, he is simply delivering a campaign speech that he could be delivering in Erie, Pennsylvania, or somewhere in Montana. So let me just quickly get you up to date on what, if you're just tuning in, Donald Trump speaking at Davos. It is remarkable, and not remarkable in any way that anybody in pre-Trump years would deem in a positive way. Donald Trump said of Greenland, that's our territory, but did repeat 3 times, I don't want to use force, I don't want to use force, I don't want to use force, but suggested that there was a quid pro quo. If the world, if Europe wants us to defend Ukraine and continue helping Ukraine from its invasion by Russia for Ukraine's territory, then Donald Trump wants Europe and the world to agree to his taking over of Greenland. Now, the president mentioned Iceland 3 or 4 times. I believe he did so earlier this week. We've checked and can't find anything that the tiny North Atlantic nation has done to provoke him, but we will continue searching to see if somehow Iceland has now been brought into this world crisis. Joe Biden, we can report at 9:30 on the East Coast, still lives rent-free in Donald Trump's head, and apparently has just purchased Park Place as well, because he's close to having monopoly in Donald Trump's brain. He continues obsessing, talking repeatedly about Joe Biden, like he was talking repeatedly about Iceland. Other lowlights of this press conference: he lied again about the 2020 election. He lied about oil companies wanting to move into Venezuela, saying they were all with us, when in fact ExxonMobil's CEO said that Venezuela right now is uninvestable. He lied about grocery prices, claiming they were going down, when in fact grocery prices spiked at their highest level since 2022. He lied about the economy that he inherited from Joe Biden, talking about massive inflation. The fact is, inflation, it was when Joe Biden left office at about the same place it is right now under Donald Trump. After a year of Donald Trump's leadership, a spate of polls this week have shown that the overwhelming majority of Americans do not believe him anymore, that this economy is Joe Biden's economy. Poll after poll after poll shows, in most cases by a 2-to-1 margin, that Americans consider this economy to be Donald Trump's economy, and any fault in that economy lies with Donald Trump, whose approval ratings with the economy has completely collapsed and now is in the low 30s, the lowest numbers he's ever suffered on the economy and his approval rating. Disturbing for those of us who actually like to elevate and support a NATO alliance that brought down Soviet communism and has been a bulwark in pushing back against Chinese aggression. He mocked France and France's leader, Emmanuel Macron, for probably about 5 minutes, openly suggesting that Macron would push back against him and his demands, suggesting that Macron and other leaders that are gathered there were weak and that they would collapse and capitulate to his demands within 3 minutes. He also said that Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements. And in that statement, Mika, I suggest that Donald Trump is speaking for himself and maybe a few people around him, because that is certainly not what the overwhelming majority of Americans believe.
Much of this speech is a litany of factually incorrect statements, and more on Greenland. The president said, "We want it back. We should have never given it up." The U.S., of course, never Greenland. Also, all I'm asking for is
first
a piece
of all,
of ice.
on that, as we've said, if you missed the top of our show 3.5 hours ago, we never had Greenland.
No.
But in 1917, we agreed to recognize Danish control of Greenland in exchange for the Dutch West Indies, which included what later became Epstein's Island, or called by many who went there, Rape Island.
And on top of that, he said, quote, "NATO is a one-way street. All the U.S. is asking for is Greenland," speaking as if he is owed Greenland. And just to be clear, Greenlanders have died for American security interests in Iraq and Afghanistan. There is nothing that Greenland wouldn't do to support America, which makes this entire situation even more ridiculous.
Yeah, NATO, again, the only time Article 5 was invoked for NATO in its almost 80-year history was after 9/11. And our NATO allies fought alongside Americans and died with Americans trying to root out Al-Qaeda and the Taliban there. Let's go back, listen a little more to the president, see if he's getting back to international affairs.